Hey guys, this is Adam, co-founder of pre.dev, and today's an exciting day. Why, you ask? Well, we're unveiling the newest version of pre.dev. And to be honest, this release is really taking pre.dev to the next level because not only can you now plan with pre.dev, you can build full production scale apps in any stack, zero setup required, no dev experience required at all. It's essentially an autonomous dev team that operates just on AI. All you have to do is prompt it high level about your business idea, about an app you want to build, a script. It could be any language, any tech stack, and the new version of pre.dev basically handles it. It plans out your roadmap as if like you had a a product manager working on the project, and then it delegates to coding agents to execute that roadmap one step at a time. This really is a new paradigm in vibe coding. I think it gives the vibe coders basically a seatbelt, keeps it on track, gives it directions almost like Uber or Google Maps, where now it has this step-by-step plan to follow and is forced to stay on that plan. We've done other videos in the past comparing cursor plan mode and pre.dev, for instance, to in Claude plan mode, and that was our MCP API. But now we basically threw on a native agentic interface to pre.dev itself, where there are no limitations. And I'm excited to get into this, guys. We're live streaming, so this is gonna be an imperfect process. We're gonna build something cool. You've seen the other videos where we built Perplexity clone, for instance, and it took a lot of the pre.dev MCP pretty much autonomously guided cursor to building that, but there was definitely a lot of steps in between where it wasn't following the plan on both sides, both cursor plan mode and pre.dev MCP. It wasn't keeping track of to-dos, and it wasn't aligned. So fortunately, I'm a dev, so I was able to prompt it and get it out the door. But for the average consumer, I would say that the current vibe coders don't get you to that end-to-end product, especially if you need something a little more custom than they provide. And that's where we come in. So let's get to it. Got some espresso. Go to the dashboard and go to solo for now. And this is the starting page. You got a couple different options here, and it gives you really the flexibility to work with any stack, one, and two, work with either new projects, 0 to 1, or existing projects, 1 to n. If you have an existing project, you can basically import a repo from GitHub, and it'll reverse engineer the architecture, and then you could scope on top of that, build a roadmap on top of that, add new features, refactor things. It sets up the environment for you in the cloud, no problem. But today we're going to go for the 0 to 1 case, and the first thing that you have to choose is either adaptive stacker or full stack template. That's pretty much one of the only choices you have to make. And the default adaptive stack, pretty easy, simulate any multi-service architecture. So that means that you have any setup of databases, any coding languages, runtimes, you can model that. And however, we understand that there are some users that don't even know what their tech stack is, and they just want something that works out of the box, similar to a lovable replit. And that's where we get the pre.dev full stack template, which is honestly one of my go-to, because I think it's, the template we built is using some of the best technologies out right now. It's end-to-end type safe. It's SSR out of the box with React Router. You're not married to any deployment providers. We got real time with WebSockets set up in the TRPC layer. We got ShadCN set up out of the box. Drizzle and Postgres setup out of the box in the environment. So if I chose adaptive stack and I entered my idea, the first milestone is often setup. So it's gonna, setup is often overlooked in coding, and it's really tricky sometimes because, different services have different requirements, and there's a lot of troubleshooting and manual kind of input that goes into getting the environment perfect. So adaptive stack spends a good amount of time on setup, but full stack template really doesn't have much setup. Maybe sets up the design system just so we have like a coherent design, but other than that, it just gets straight into the roadmap. So, but the adaptive stack is like where the power is, because the other guys like Replit and Crew and Lovable, V0, etc., they just, for the most part, give you an out-of-the-box stack. I'm pretty sure Replit allows multi-stack, but I'm not so sure it works that well. So yeah, let's go with the pre.dev full stack template, and we're gonna build. We can build anything. So what are we gonna build today? Today we're gonna build this app that my co-founder and I worked on when we were sophomores in college. It's called Notoriety. And it's funny because we gained some on-campus notoriety from this app. Basically, it's an anonymous note marketplace for college kids, but some kids were using it to cheat. So we got into some heat with our university honor council and stuff like that. We ended up taking a year off from school and pursuing this. We pivoted to another idea called Down to Chill. So Notoriety kind of got left behind, but we were making some good money while it was running, and I think it was a pretty cool app. So let's describe it simply with the prompt. And just quick note, this button deep spec here, if you're familiar with our API MCP, and if you've seen those demo videos where we built a few apps using that, where we use the MCP in Cursor, for instance, we have a fast spec and deep spec, which fast spec gives you a more rough architecture, more rough high-level roadmap, versus deep spec goes in depth, does like a deep research, and really maps out like every single file essentially, and every single function in the code. So depending on your preference, if you have more time, you could choose deep spec. It spends a little more tokens, but obviously it's more thorough. We're going to just go with this full stack template and fast spec. Make it easy for now. So I would like to build an app called Notoriety. It's an anonymous note marketplace for college students. The theme is dark black, dark mode with purple and white accents, just so it looks the same as like I imagine. Just give it a little bit. Obviously, you can give it as much information as you want. You can upload multiple documents if you have RFPs or specs or architecture, previous architecture. You can upload all that information. But as you can see here, you literally need zero tech experience. There's nothing technical about this description. It's just like business logic. And that's what makes pre.dev so useful for anybody, not just coders. Coders, I would say, are more Claude Code and Cursor, and then the really high level users making merch websites and dog walking apps and stuff like that, your Lovables, Replits excel there. But we're kind of that in between where it's almost like you get the power of Cursor and Claude without having to prompt it directly. So you don't have to have any of the tech knowledge. You don't have to have any of the setup work for your environment. And without further ado, let's just click start building and watch this thing. Get some this espresso going. See, we got the nice little, if you've seen the last interface of pre.dev, it looked a little bit different. It was more focused around the graph and stuff, but we figured to make it easy, we're going to give you that terminal feel that like Claude Code does, but because we're in a web interface, we have a little more freedom in the UI, and we could do a lot more cool shit, to be honest with you. So we wanted to make it like stream of consciousness, one process, and just step by step can guide you through the whole process. So you don't need to do really anything but monitor it. You can ask questions if you need to, whatever. But let's see what it did so far. So it was like, I'm gonna help you build this, create some internal tasks, and then now it's actually researching technical patterns, market landscape for this app to understand what it should be building. And then now, instead of you having to prompt our architecture tool, the agent itself comes up with like an executive summary that it passes in to our edit architecture tool. And that's really all the sauce is in that edit architecture tool. That's where like our native agent excels, because it has access to this tool, which, under the hood is similar to our MCP and that you could use in Cursor and Claude, but this, natively supports it. So you get cooler interface updates, you get, better agent alignment, etc. So it called edit architecture. The reason it called it edit instead of fresh, which is the other option, is because we used that full stack template. So there was an existing entry point and code base in place. So the first thing is the user flows. And you can see we have the main users of the app, which in this case are anonymous buyer and seller. They both come to a landing page, and then authentication. You can browse notes, note detail, list note, checkout. There's a seller profile, withdraw earnings, messages, and then an admin dashboard. So I think it did pretty good at mapping out the general user flows. Then we have the tech stack. So the tech stack, once again, it has the setup that I explained earlier from our full stack template. And it has like React Router, TRPC, Drizzle, Postgres, WebSocket, Shad. We got add clerk for authentication, Stripe for payments, resend for email, so on and so forth. Other potential recommended tech stack items. And then we have the stories, which these user stories are split into milestones. And this is basically like the roadmap, and this is like a table view of it. So as you can see, like the first setup story is setup colors and theme in Tailwind CSS, display component design system, etc. So this is like, as a front-end developer, I want to configure the project theme and design system. That makes sense. So, we don't want every page to have a different look and feel. And then it starts with auth and onboarding. So we got sign up, email verification, even captured like I want to verify my college affiliation using EDU email. We got magic link, hero section, more stuff about hero and pricing. And you got marketplace core, seller tools, transactions, admin, and then documentation, deployment, maintenance, support are the last things. You can see the generate system architecture gives you an overview of the system, external systems as well. So you got like clerk, WebSockets, you got the front end web app, talks to the back end API, the database, and you as a user don't really even have to know what any of this stuff is, but it maps it out internally. You can also ask the agent anything. So let's say generate spec complete. You can see it also generated a in-depth spec along with cost analytics. And these are just rough estimates. You could change. It's like a cost analytics tool. You could change the hourly, etc. Here you can see we got these 8 milestones. We got executive summary, core functionalities, tech stack, personas. This is all mapped out, and our AI has this ingrained in its memory essentially. So it can reference this and has a good idea of the project context every time it's starting to do some work. Then we have the roadmap, which is this nice Gantt chart, and we could zoom out a little bit, and you could see that it really lays out every single task for you. So our coding agent, from now on, you don't have to provide it a single prompt if you don't want to. Obviously, you could change things if you want. You can debug if you want. But essentially, it's going to run through this roadmap. All you got to do is click this button, start building code. So you can see here, you have three choices basically. After you generate the architecture, our planning's done. Like basically have a full product roadmap that could keep you occupied for months if you had a real dev team. But we give you these 3 choices just to guide you, make it easier. You could start building the code. Obviously, self-explanatory, starts to build the code. I recommend, signing in with GitHub, so then it automatically just starts syncing that with GitHub. You could chat, which allows you to ask questions to our agent about your architecture, about your tech stack. If you were unclear about something, if you want to change anything, you could do that just by chatting. And then there's human assistance, which if you click that, it'll recommend agencies, professional agencies in our network that can help build your project for you or help you with support. And we have an in-app chat system that allows you to contact these guys directly, and you get fast responses and basically super aligned to your project scope from day one, and they could start building it for you. If you're having any trouble, you could try to get as far as possible with the AI, but we all understand that the AI isn't perfect. And if you're taking something to production, you probably need a dev team. And that's where we can help you out with that too. You don't have to worry about finding that technical co-founder or worry about hiring expensive, in-house devs. You can outsource this seamlessly. So, we could, once again, the fun part is just clicking start building code, but I just want to show you a little bit about just the architectural awareness our agent has, and like how now we can ask it anything about our project. Like, could you please describe the payment processing layer and how that will work? So it has this search project tool, which is a proprietary search that we have that allows it to search all the context and get back results really quickly. And one thing about our system, we believe it's the most token efficient thing out there. Like for building a full scale project, going through your entire roadmap to get production ready code, we believe that ours is the most efficient. And our pricing is token based, so plans start at free, $25, $50, and then it goes up from there based on how many tokens you want. But basically for the $50 plan, you probably get a full, and I wouldn't even call it MVP, like a full product, a full product just for that $50 if you and you don't have to paste it yourself. You just click one button essentially. So you can see here that it, researched our existing code base template as well as the architecture that we mapped out, gave us a really in-depth answer about how the payments are going to work within our context. So another thing is like the human assistance part. You could click that and it's just going to recommend developers for you. Or I could click up here, right? You could just fill out some information and then you'll match with developers. Here you could also see devs and immediately start chatting with them. And these devs are already matched close. Our algorithm already recommends the ones that match closest to your tech stack. So, it's a seamless experience where you could get 4 or 5 quotes, proposals from dev shops in, even minutes, maybe like a couple hours at most. But in the past, that process going through Upwork, finding outsourced dev work, super unreliable, super not transparent. Now you get, this amazing access to this network. So let's continue building, right? Real quick here, you could always view your plan, your code. We have, blown up views of all this stuff. You get the roadmap there. You could sync with linear Jira here if you want to align your dev team with it. And then there's code. And this stuff, this was in our last version as well, but we made it look a little bit nicer. And we actually have a full VS Code like editor in here too. So even if you did want to edit the code directly, you could actually do that. So now we're going to get into building the code. So let's click Start Building Code and let's see what happens. So you can see what it did was it pulled the milestone and the current story. In deep spec mode, we would pull the subtask because it breaks down these stories into even further subtasks. You can see here, it basically has the roadmap, and it pulled this first task, which is setup, colors, theme, and tailwind, display component design system. And it pulled that task and assigned it to the agent. The agent started doing research, started understanding the project context, doing web search, finding UI components, for instance, to use. And then it's going to delegate an implementation plan just for this one subtask / story to our coding agent. So you can see here it prompted our coding agent here, submitted its research plan, and then the coding agent, which lives in a secure sandbox, receives this request, wakes up, and is just focused and aligned on this one task. So in terms of context management, it's super efficient. And then the agent basically doesn't get confused after. You don't have to worry about the context length and whatever. It handles it all seamlessly by itself. And then when we're done with this task, you just click build next task again. And for some of our more expensive plans, we have like a build all option as well, where you could literally just click build all and it's just going to run through your entire roadmap. You set like token limits and stuff like that, auto spend token limits to top up if you need it. And then build all will just, so even the inconvenience of having to click one build next task every so often is not an issue anymore. So you can see here it's editing files, it's creating files, it's running bash commands. You can see all the output. It's making directory, writing files. So right now it's creating the design system for Notoriety. And, people are kind of impatient, I feel like, and they might be like, oh, I get a full thing on Lovable a little bit faster. That's true, but is it really, a scalable solution? Does it have every single feature and can you account for that? If it messes up at some point, can it recover? And I think most people who have tried these platforms know that the answer is no. And that's where I think, you know, this is probably the best coding solution on the planet, at least for vibe coding, if you want to call it that. But once again, it's like vibe coding um, with a guide. There's like an orchestrator agent that's controlling the vibe coding process. So you don't really have to worry about, oh, change the home.tsx file. Oh, Tailwind needs to be set up in this type of way, or something like a lot the other agents like Replit and Lovable and stuff, they start breaking down once you get into full stack backend database operations, because they're not good at like troubleshooting that. Ours seamless full stack, and I think that's where you're gonna see a lot of cool things in this demo that are, I don't even know if I could touch on all of them. Like for instance here, after it's wrote like these files and stuff like that, it actually has a browser. And I'm not saying like other things don't have this, like Cursor has it too, but once again, it's like set up in your local environment. This is all autonomously set up for you in the cloud in a web interface. You could even do it on mobile if you want. So you can see what it did was in our home.tsx, it just laid out the design system as a start. And I think that's honestly a best practice to figure this stuff out, so your app has consistent colors and design. And you can see it's a nice little design that it did. And then before it's allowed to move on, it has to verify acceptance criteria. And that's another big thing, because we've mapped out these user stories and acceptance criteria. It basically forces the agent to double check its work, make sure, and test visually as well as programmatically, type check, lint, not saying that's not new stuff. Claude and Cursor and stuff have that, but essentially it's not going to mark this subtask done until it verifies that acceptance criteria. And then we can move on to the next one. And like it just shows that coding is a very imperfect process, and to get it right, if it's 100% vibe coded, it's hard to have that accountability for the agent. I think what this does is like give you that. The agents right now are really good at their local to-dos, and you can see it creates local to-dos and stays pretty on track with those. But the high-level product roadmap stuff, that's where it breaks down, and that's where we excel. And I think that end-to-end system basically mimics a full development team. Okay, so you can see after the story implementation is complete, it just summarizes what it did. Design system showcase, it documented the design system, it created these files, and then the cool part here is if you're synced up with GitHub, one, it creates a repo for you at the start. If we're doing the 0 to 1 case, it created a feature branch for us. It committed and created a pull request. And we could even view this right here. You can see it has all the information we need. We could merge this. We can audit what the agent did really seamlessly. And then it's also, our agent itself doesn't have access to pushing to GitHub. It's all deterministic based on the roadmap. So you don't have to worry about the agent like fucking up your main, or, pardon my language, effing up your main, because it's not allowed to push to main. It always creates feature branches and then pull requests, and you commits and pull requests, it's your responsibility to go into GitHub, review your pull requests, and merge to main safely. And that allows you to coordinate it with other devs and stuff like that. And then it sends this this widget, which is basically giving you a diff of what was implemented. You could preview it if you want. You can see this stuff, and you can see how fast this server-side rendering is, and with React Router. So we're not steering you wrong here. And then what's next, you ask? Okay, click Start Building Code. Now we are on this story, which is sign up. So, you can see that this is the current thing that's in progress. We have a good amount of tasks, because the truth is that building any full-scale app is going to take a lot of little task coordination to actually get right. So it always does a research phase where it searches your project, understands your context and architecture, and if there's existing code, tries to understand the necessary code that it will need, and then searches for current tech stack patterns on the web. So when it implements, it's not using outdated stuff, because a lot of these LLMs are, trained from ages ago. Here it delegated another code task, you can see. And now the coding agent's starting, ready to go.